Hey everybody, so my name is Bethany Geddes and I am the owner of Nutritious and Delicious. And we are actually doing a webinar today. This is a recorded one. So this is all about unveiling the power of protein. This is pretty important because I see a lot of people not having enough protein in their diet. So this is why we're going to be doing this one today for you. So welcome and thanks for taking the time out of your busy schedule to come and watch this today. So, a little bit about myself. I am a mom of two boys, and I actually love chocolate. And I believe that food doesn't actually have to taste bad in terms of it being healthy kind of foods. I love food all in general. And I love being creative with food in the kitchen with my boys. So, we've come up with an amazing recipe book for you guys as well, that's brand new. So, a little bit about my professional background. I actually used to be a nurse and work in the diet and health industry, and I did that for several years, kind of figured out working my way backwards, really, because in the diet and health industry, I realized there was a huge gap in people actually not getting their needs met properly, in terms of people actually coming back in heavier each and every single time that they came in year after year. So what I really discovered was that long-term dieting doesn't work. Really, dieting is more harmful for people. And a lot of people weren't actually learning anything about themselves emotionally around food either. So this is kind of what caused like the repetitive same problems, and people would come back in not really understanding or learning and having any tools in their tool belt. Like just basically followed a really strict plan, lost weight, and then they went back to their regular eating patterns again. So why I actually do what I do now is because I want people actually to live a longer, healthier life, away from chronic illnesses and diseases, and giving people the tools, the real tools, to do this long term for themselves. So I actually went back to school and got my certified holistic nutritional So my designation is certified holistic nutritional consultant, and I got my diploma with that, and it really helped because it basically pushed forward with all the clients that we were seeing, and they were coming to me and asking for more advice. So now what I do is I have my own business, like I said, Nutritious and Delicious. And I help clients basically, they come to me usually for weight loss, but then we usually go into more chronic illnesses, missing things in their diet, basically what we've already talked about today in terms of protein, and just giving you some education basically around what real food is, because a lot of the times people are eating very processed, and this is more because of a time constraint. So we'll kind of talk more about that within the program here today. So a little bit of an overview. We're going to talk about debunking some myths, because this comes up a lot. I've noticed with clients that I have, understanding what protein really is, because again, education is key, and a lot of people aren't really understanding what real protein is, implementing recovery strategies, and we have some common questions at the end as well. As you'll see, I like tea. I drink a lot of tea. I used to be a Brit, so tea is a big thing for me. So I'll always be using that while I'm doing consults and things like that as well. So today, let's talk about kind of the myths. The first myth that usually comes up, this one doesn't really have to do per se with protein, but this is where I'm noticing a lot of clients coming to me with like that diet mentality, and kind of shying away from food groups. And I'll usually hear it within the consultation. So I usually hear carbs and fats basically are the enemy in some shape or form when I'm talking to clients. Carbs actually are our main source of energy. I know there's a whole keto thing going on right now, and that is a trend, and more trends will come in. So just to let you know, like keto isn't always for every person. And this is where you need to specifically talk to somebody like myself and find out if it is right for you or not. So carbs, like I said, are our main source of energy. Our brain and our body actually needs carbohydrates to function on a daily basis. On average, most people are actually eating the wrong carbohydrates, and this is more processed food, for example. Our wheat industry, like breads and pastas and all that kind of stuff, are getting more and more processed, unfortunately. So a lot of nutrients are being stripped from the wheat, and a lot of people you're seeing more celiacs and stuff, people that are intolerant to wheat or sensitivities for those reasons. Same with like the dairy industry as well. We're seeing more of that as well, with more dairy intolerance and people not being able to tolerate milk and things like that as well. So, there are a lot more healthier carb options. Obviously, your fruits and your vegetables. A lot of people, though, do buy way more processed foods and eat out of convenience and time, more so for anything. So, this is where we need to actually look at what we're doing with our foods. There's different types of healthy fats as well. Um, Healthy fats, basically, you can find like olive oil, nuts and seeds, your nut butters. You can get some salmon, mackerel, like that's another fish. So there's lots of different types of oils as well that you can have. And a lot of people are like, oh, fat is bad for you. It clogs your arteries. But it depends on what type of fat we're going for. If we're going for processed food, yes, because that oil has been hydrogenated. And that is what actually clogs our arteries and causes heart disease, cancers, all that kind of stuff. So we want to kind of shy away from the processed food industry as much as we possibly can and eat more of the natural foods that are there for us and cook them in a way that our body is going to actually absorb them better. Because I find a lot of people will deep fry like even healthier stuff, and then they're kind of making those foods very unhealthy. So this is why I've actually made the recipe book, something that's actually really healthy, lots of different natural foods that we can use. So the other thing too is a lot of people talk about is their cholesterol levels. So we have two different cholesterol levels in our body. We have good cholesterol, that's our HDL, and we have bad cholesterol, which is LDL. And the bad cholesterol is actually what is causing the heart disease, strokes, heart attacks, things like that. We want to make sure that one is low. And obviously staying away from any kind of man-made foods, processed foods, foods that basically aren't exactly in their natural state anymore. And I find a lot of people aren't really aware of what is natural anymore. If it comes in a package, in a box, typically it's processed. So even a lot of breads and wheats and things like that, like I mentioned, it is so refined, meaning like it's been kind of overused a lot, and there's a lot of fillers in our food, unfortunately, when you start to read the back of ingredient labels again. So most people are eating trans fat, like I said. So trans fat is found in those processed foods. And then we have saturated fat. Saturated fat comes from animal meat. So this is where it's going to be found in like beef and pork. It's lower in chicken and turkey because they're a leaner type of animal. So I usually start to advise clients to go for more like chicken, turkey, fish, or even game meat. So if you have somebody that hunts in your family, there's deer, elk, bison, and moose sometimes even. They're usually a lot leaner animals. Our meat, unfortunately, in the meat industry, is our animals are very sick as well. Like they've been given a lot of antibiotics, and they're very sick animals by the time they get to be slaughtered. And basically, when we're eating them, we're eating animals that are already pumped full of medication, hormones, to produce milk and things like that. So a lot of our food industry has been messed around with in terms of hormones and things like that. That's why I'm trying to sort of get people to eat a cleaner version. If you can get someone in your family that actually does hunting, that's a better source and a leaner source of food. And you know that that animal has been running freely in the wild, eating natural food in the wild, not being fed corn and I think what else do they feed them? They usually feed them like, yeah, corn and just filler food. And they're not really eating that rich nutrient grass that they used to. So even our meat industry has kind of been in not a good shape exactly as well. So we need to increase a little bit more plant-based as well, which I've noticed in a lot of people's diets. This also helps lower our bad cholesterol and raises our good cholesterol for us as well. Myth number 2. Now, this is protein is only for bodybuilding. So a lot of people, a lot of women, especially, I notice shy away from protein in general. They tell me like they don't want to gain a lot of muscle mass. They don't want to be bulky and all that. And when you're working out, as you know, it takes a long time to actually gain some muscle at all. It takes a lot to get your muscles to build up. And that's usually using really heavy weights, eating a lot of protein. I mean, a lot for your workouts to sustain that muscle as well. But the thing is, I want to point out is we're actually lacking protein more so, especially women. And protein isn't just for gaining muscle, but it also helps us recover faster from injuries and surgeries that we're going for, right? So it's a place that is actually also vital for blood sugars throughout the day. And this is something I see on a regular basis. And cravings, like there's so many people I see that have like massive cravings, especially nighttime cravings. And a lot of it comes from not having enough protein throughout their day. So their body is missing nutrients, and protein is vital because we can't actually make our own amino acids. And when we eat animal meats, we actually have 9 essential amino acids in that meat. So, if we don't have enough protein, our muscles will start to waste to actually support our own immune system and our hormone production. So, that's not a good thing. That means that if you're not getting enough protein in on a daily basis, your body will start to use its own muscle source as food, and your muscles will start to waste away. And the muscle we have on our body is vital and important. So, we'll go kind of more into that as well. Myth number 3, skipping foods and counting calories is the only way to lose weight. This is definitely a myth. And I see this unfortunately in the diet industry massively, and people that have perpetually been in and out of trends and things like that as well. So this is where counting calories or counting food groups or points or things like that, or getting rid of certain food groups are restricted, and this is becoming a problem. So eating smaller meals and snacks regularly obviously fuels our body, and it helps our metabolism work faster. Not skipping meals also balances your blood sugars and stops the typical it's the 2 to 5 crash. So most people tell me their energy usually slumps between the time of 2 to 5 p.m. before dinner. And this is where most people are very sluggish, their energy is fatigued. And a lot of the times it's because a lot of people are drinking tons of coffee in the morning, not hungry, they're eating probably a big lunch, they feel really tired after eating lunch, and then their blood sugars are kind of all over the place. So the only time I typically suggest to clients to fast is if they actually have something called insulin resistance. And this is where we're trying to kind of restart the body and help the body to use its own insulin. And we need to help them do that in a fasted state sometimes. Okay, so let's get into kind of understanding what protein really is. So, protein is actually essential for our muscle repair, improved immune function, which we all know we need that right now, balancing our hormones, which a lot of people have very unbalanced hormones, blood sugars that are low, that are high. We need more protein to be able to sustain that throughout the day. Protein is also essential for carb cravings as well, and helping with wrong foods and things like that, because a lot of people, like I said, aren't utilizing the protein that we actually have, and instead kind of putting processed food in replacement of that as well. So protein also helps you naturally stay lean. So the more protein you eat, usually the less natural hungry you are, and the less cravings that you have as well. So my recommendations, this is based on like a sedentary lifestyle. So somebody that doesn't really work out, they have a desk job, they're not really doing very much throughout their day in terms of like working out, moving around, getting their body going. So my recommendation for minimally, I would say for women, is 0.6 grams of protein per pound of body weight. So this would be for somebody who is 150 pounds, say woman. On average, she would need at least 55 grams of protein a day. Now, what this looks like in terms of food, this is about 100 grams of chicken plus 2 eggs. That's a whole egg. And half a cup of Greek yogurt as an example. That isn't actually much, but honestly, when I see people write down their foods or ask them what they're eating in a day, a lot of women aren't even meeting that basic requirement. Men actually need more protein than women because they are usually physically bigger and they burn more calories at rest. They usually have more muscle than women, and therefore they actually need a little bit more protein. So for a sedentary guy that's not working out, I would usually recommend a 0.8 grams of protein a day per pound of body weight. And so an average man for about 200 pounds, let's say he weighs 200 pounds, he needs about 73 grams at least of protein a day. And this looks like about 200 grams of chicken plus 3 eggs. That's not a lot. Like, really, that's not a lot of food at all. And like I said, I actually see with the men are typically pretty good with their protein on average most of the time, even overdoing it sometimes too much. But I'm noticing, like I said, for women, and especially women that are struggling with blood sugars, carb cravings, things like that, we are really lacking protein. So now let's talk about the types of protein, because there's different sources, and you may be a vegetarian, you're going, I don't eat meat, so how am I supposed to get protein in? So we have something called complete protein and incomplete protein. So protein actually comes from, like, in terms of it being meat, there is 9 essential amino acids that the body cannot actually make. And it's found, like I said, only in animal products, those 9 essential. And this, for example, regular meats and stuff are going to be things like fish, eggs, meats, protein powders. So this could be game meat. This could be meat you buy from the grocery store. Like I said, incomplete protein is the plant-based sources, and we actually have to pair them together in order to complete the protein. And this is where I think a lot of vegetarians aren't getting it correct, because they're eating their plant-based, but they're not pairing them together while they're having meals. They're kind of all separate, and then the body's trying to sort of puzzle them together. But protein, again, like, you need to have that in like one meal for itself. So you've got to help your body out a little bit more. Otherwise, we suffer with things like lack of iron, anemia, things like that. And that's typically found more in vegetarian diets as well. So, for example, for a plant-based person trying to pair their food together in a meal, this would be pairing things like beans and rice together, hummus and a whole wheat pita together, natural peanut butter and crackers together, lentils and barley together, quinoa and almonds together, or tofu and brown rice. Would that be another pair? Or if they wanted to get something that was kind of already done for them, would be a vegan protein powder. So that would be another good way to kind of get more protein throughout your day as well. So let's talk about increasing protein intake and timing, because timing can be something that a lot of people kind of miss, and the window is kind of gone for them. But if you do any types of workout, your best window to get your protein into your system is right after your workout. So your body, what's happening, your body is more receptive to protein synthesis, which means the body actually takes the protein and helps repair more tissue. So this actually helps you reduce soreness in the muscles, and helps you build those muscles as well. So this is where it's more essential to try and get like a vegan protein powder, or if you can tolerate dairy, put a regular protein powder in there for yourself, so your body will actually get the protein right away. So increasing protein could be done in many ways. So first, we need to kind of find out how much protein you're really eating. And this can be done through an assessment with myself. So meal planning the right proteins into your plan, and finding out what you really like to eat as well. Because why would you try and force yourself to eat something that you don't really like? You need to add in protein supplements for convenience. And I find a lot of people, this is where it's the quickest way to get protein in. If they're like, hey, I'm busy, I don't really have time to like make any eggs or take time off work or anything like that to do, make something for myself. I usually advise pre-planning your food out, obviously, if you're at work or if you're busy running around throughout your day. But a protein shake, like I said, is kind of a last minute good one to go to. Meal planning, like I said, is one that is crucial, and that's where I come in basically. Adding in protein supplements is something that we can definitely look at right away. And then the other one is cooking protein correctly, as protein can also leak out of your foods as well. And what happens is we lose those amino acids that our body needs. So protein rich cooking would be something that would help you keep the protein within the food. So this can be done by making things like stews. You can be grilling or baking your protein, adding protein to soups, or having protein shakes that have a high amount already. Because when we kind of like, do our food and we're kind of getting rid of all those good nutrients, it's really stripping away what we need. And if we put it in like a stew or a soup, those proteins are being leached back into the soup, and we're drinking the soup as well. So that's really good. Now, protein and recovery. This is important because when you're getting over any types of like injuries or surgeries, you've been, say, given a diagnosis of something and you need to change your health, and you need to also recover from like workouts and things like that. Recovery is something that's really important. And you kind of need to be provided with more actionable steps individually to you to optimize your recovery through your protein intake, that's geared to you individually. Like I said, everybody has a unique what they need exactly. So the other thing too is gearing up for more hydration with less caffeine, because this is also something that people don't really understand as well as with protein. The more protein you consume, the more water your kidneys actually need to break down and flush out any built up urea. So, but the body will make urea basically, and urea, if it's not flushed out, can actually cause kidney stones later. So, this is why you see like bodybuilders and things like that who are excessively eating protein ending up with kidney stones, because they're excessively eating protein. It's building urea in the body and they're not flushing out that urea, and it causes kidney stones. So you need a lot of hydration as well. Another one too is sleep impacts muscle recovery. So this is a big one too. A lot of people are very dysregulated, I've noticed, especially in the last few years with sleep. And this is where your muscle recovery is, where we're actually repairing tissue after workouts, and recovering from surgeries and illnesses. So sleep is a huge one as well. And that's a big factor as well into your overall body health, immune system, how everything's functioning right now. And then another one that a lot of people don't really realize is stress. Stress is a huge impact and is very overlooked in terms of how your body is digesting your food. A lot of people are coming to me eating fairly well, but their digestion is really off and they're starting to have a lot more allergies. And they're getting symptoms for that as well. And it's because of stress. And our body is basically going into something called leaky gut syndrome. Basically, what happens there is that your body is eating the foods, but then it's not absorbing it properly. So it's kind of being leached out of your intestines, going into your bloodstream, and then it causes all these toxic behaviors like rashes or hives, issues, usually come out in the skin and stuff as well. Not sleeping, insomnia, headaches, like fatigue, like lacking energy, all that stuff. So like I said, this is causing a lot of autoimmune conditions, unfortunately, mental cravings for food, and drink especially, and also midsection weight around the middle. And this is usually coming from increased cortisol levels. And this is our stress hormone. And when they're very stressed out for long periods of time, this is where people are carrying that weight, usually around their midsection. And we kind of need to look at where the hormones are as well. So let's kind of go into some common questions. And then after that, I'm going to give you basically where you can find me. So if you want to contact me for your own personal consultation. So let's kind of go through what a lot of people are usually asking in terms of questions, in terms of their protein and their eating and everything. So, what are some effective strategies to include more protein in my diet? So, like I mentioned before, protein shakes are an instant kind of quick fix. Having protein already cooked at home, buying, say, like a roasted chicken that's kind of pre-done, pre-cooked, is always really handy as well, and can make an instant salad with that, or a dinner. Having jerky, like cleaner jerky that doesn't have a lot of additives, preservatives, and all that in it. Nuts and seeds are really handy as well, making sure that they are like the raw nuts and seeds, not the roasted with chocolate and all that kind of stuff, but the raw nuts and seeds. To have that in your vehicle or in your purse is really handy, especially for blood sugar dips throughout the day. And that, like I said, that's usually because there's lack of protein going on in the diet. Another question we get is, after focusing on adequate protein and calorie consumption, what is the next biggest priority to focus on? So calories are usually the last thing I tell clients to focus on, because it's more about the quality of your food. So protein is pretty high on the list of what I think a lot of people are missing. And then usually healthy fats and more vegetables. Most people start with eating carbohydrates like, box processed foods, crackers, granola bars, packaged oatmeals, breads, bagels, all that kind of stuff. And if anything, we need to look more at the protein, the healthy fats, and looking at more vegetables. So a lot of people, what I've noticed is they have it the opposite way around. Another question is, what are some strategies for tracking nutrition without using an app or weighing food? So a few people do say to me, like, I've been on a diet and I don't want to weigh my food or feel really restricted. And I totally understand that, because sometimes tracking food can be triggering for some people to put them in that diet mentality and cause binge eating again. So tracking your food can be done on paper, like writing it down for yourself. So you kind of have like a mental note what you've had throughout the day. And having your food out ready. So if you kind of plan out your food and see what you're eating the day before, it kind of gives you more of that visual of what you're doing, as well as when it comes to dinners and things where you tend to overeat, like a buffet, I would use a smaller plate or a smaller bowl, because that way you're less inclined to overfill it. So this is a quick strategy I help people with usually, if they kind of want to just sort of fill their plate up and they feel like they're not getting enough food all the time. That's usually a quick, easy one. Even when it comes to like juice or coffees or things like that, using a smaller cup would help also lessen that as well for you if you're trying to watch sort of the calorie content. When we also get takeout and things like that, we also have different sizes and shapes of boxes that it comes in. And that's usually really hard to track as well, because usually restaurant portions or takeout portions of food is double to triple of what we normally would be able to eat in a portion, but most people will eat the entire thing. So another way is actually trying to take that restaurant food, say if you're out eating lunch or dinner, and halving it right away. Typically, it's usually too much, and there's too much of the carbohydrates in there as well. So I would, like, if it's a giant burger or like a giant clubhouse sandwich, I would cut it in half, eat the first half, see how you feel. If you're still physically hungry, then eat the other half. But I would usually just say, like, see how you feel. Usually when most people are like, I feel good, like I actually don't need to eat the other half, take it home and then you have another meal for yourself. So that's kind of another way to kind of save calories without having to like track on an app or anything or weighing food. Another good one is, if you travel a lot, is using your own hands basically as the judgment. So typically healthy fat, you want it to be as big as your own thumbs. So this is like your peanut butter, your cheese, which a lot of people like, that's it. That's all I get for cheese. But honestly, that's all you really need is, a cube of cheese as big as two thumbs, peanut butter as big as your own two thumbs, and that's also nuts and seeds as well. So that's not a lot. And a lot of people are telling me like, oh, I eat like a cup of trail mix a day. That is a lot. Typically, you only need a handful. And when I say a handful, measurement wise, between men and women, it kind of looks like about a third of a cup for women to a quarter cup, depending on how tall you are. And men, it's like a half a cup. And that's enough. Like, because there's a lot of calories and stuff packed in nuts and seeds as well. And that's where a lot of hidden calories are. And a lot of people are like, but it's healthy, but also it's not good in terms of eating too much. The In terms of protein, you usually want to go with the palm of your own hand, so kind of here to here of meat, and kind of the thickness of your own hand as well. So if you think about a steak or a piece of salmon, salmon is usually quite thin, so usually you can get quite a big piece of salmon. But in terms of like meats and steaks and stuff, they're relatively quite thick. So you want to kind of have roughly the size of your own hand. If you're eating this giant like T-bone steak and there's so much meat on it, like you're gonna feel that later, and your digestion will actually be really slow and sluggish because of it. In terms of like carbohydrates, now I'm talking like fruits and vegetables, things that you actually will naturally be able to eat that don't have any labels on them, basically. So broccoli, carrots, cauliflower, apples, oranges, bananas, all that kind of stuff. So typically piece of fruit, one piece of hand, most pieces of fruit fit in your hand. And if it's like a fruit salad, it's probably about a cup. So you're going to probably have like a small bowl of that. With the vegetables, it's usually 2 cupped hands, and I'm talking like big because salad is quite voluminous. So you kind of want about 2 cups of solid salad. So you can get a lot more salad and vegetables in, but people have it backwards. People eat such a small amount of vegetables and a huge amount of carbohydrates. In terms of like the processed carbs though, so I'm talking like bagels, slices of bread, things like that, usually only as much as your own hand. And typically that's only about a slice of toast for women. Men typically can end up with 2 slices, but bagels, I actually used to work in a bagel shop as well back in the day. And bagels typically now they hold about, oh my goodness, it's, I'm trying to remember if it's 2 to 3 slices of bread per bagel. And they've gotten bigger because bagels actually used to only be 3 inches and now they're 6. And typically bagels are holding a lot more bread and carbohydrates than a lot of people are aware of. And if you're eating that on a daily basis, you are having a lot of carbohydrates. So just keep that in mind. Another question that comes up, this is quite common for a lot of people, emotional eating. So, how do you begin changing your relationship with food and with the anxiety of stepping on the scale? So, this one's a little tougher because we rely on food for love, sometimes for comfort. We do it out of boredom or just to quell sometimes anxiety. So, changing your relationship with food is an inward process and working on yourself, and it's where we have to learn to talk about what's going on for us instead of using food to kind of mask how we feel. And this comes in terms of food and drinking as well. And this is where obviously seeing myself and having a consultation and going into regular nutritional counseling would be really beneficial to you, because we're obviously trying to now give you the power back and not let food or the drink control you. And usually what happens is a lot of clients will start to have that awareness first of what they are doing, because I'm mirroring back what they're saying and what they're doing. So usually it's a place of, oh, I didn't even realize I was doing that. And it's not a place of shame or anything like that. It's just that we get ourselves into these patterns and these habits. And we need to kind of slowly get ourselves back into taking that control back for ourselves. So that one is a bit more of a process for a lot of people. Last question. How do you prioritize nutrition when you're away from home or when the time is short to prepare healthy meals? So, this is quite common. Obviously, if you are business traveling, you travel a lot yourself, anyways. Maybe you've got kids, you're running around, you got lots of things to do. We all need to eat to stay alive. Basically, this is what I say. So, you have to really prioritize your nutrition, and it comes down to the value of your health. So, if you value having a healthy body and all that you work hard for, you're more likely to seek out the healthier options and not to seek out junk food and fast food. So, when you make your health a priority, it's kind of a second nature to actually find healthier options. And this can be even just a matter of like going to the gas station and being like, well, they've got some sunflower seeds here, they've got some nuts and seeds trail mix, and a bottle of water. I'll get that. And typically, most gas stations will have like bananas or apples or something hanging around in a basket, and you can grab one of those as well. So, honestly, really, there is not a lot of excuse because we are so inundated with food around us. There is a lot of variety that we can get, and we are lucky for that in the countries that we live in. And so, really, it just has to come down to the priority that you're making for yourself. Even if you stop at like a McDonald's or something that is generally, we all know, that is not very healthy, you can find the healthiest thing on the menu. I know there's burger joints and stuff. A lot of them are starting to do like gluten-free options where you can get a grilled chicken burger and you can put it in a lettuce wrap instead. You just have to ask. And it even comes down to restaurants as well, where basically you can say, hey, can I just put that sauce on the side? Maybe that cheese, could you just put that cheese on the side or take the cheese away or whatever it is? Just all the added extra things that you know probably isn't great for your health if you're having, extra bacon and cheese and all that kind of stuff stuffed on top, because it really does add up in terms of your health. So I hope you guys had a great time here today for the webinar. And like I said, I have a recipe book as well. So basically, let me know when you book a consultation that you have attended this webinar, because we have a brand new recipe book that has over 50 different recipes. They're super easy, super clean recipes, and they taste really good. And lots of desserts, dinners in there. different snacks, and there's also like breakfasts and lunches ideas, and they're really quick and easy to make. So you can actually get that recipe book as a gift if you sign up for the nutrition consultation, and just let me know that you have attended this webinar and who referred you obviously to this webinar as well. So book your consultation using the link, and I will also leave my website and my email address for you here in the show notes. And thank you so much for coming here today, basically, and taking the time to look after your health. So in good health. Bye for now.